Hi! In this video we are going to show how we can use iteration structures that are a very common part of control structures. In this case, iteration flows allow us to perform tasks in a repeated way. So we can define structures that can be repeated several times depending on some condition. In this case, take a look here, and this represents a flow in which, while some condition is true, some actions are performed. In this case, the statement that allows to represent us this is the while statement. So this statement is written as you can observe here. While this condition, in this case n greater than 0, some actions, so these actions are as well inside the indentation block of code of the while. What this means is that these instructions will be executed while this condition is true. So in this case it's very important to ensure that this condition at some point will be false and then the loop will end. Otherwise, we'll have an infinite loop and we have to prevent this execution. So, take into account what happens here, the print, and then this instruction is changing the value of n and ensures that at some point this condition will be false, since each time this value will be lower. So at some point the value of n will be 0 and the loop will finish. So these loops allow us to define instructions that are repeated several times depending on some condition, and it's very important to define some termination condition that allow us to provide the end of the loop. So here you have an example in which there is not any condition to change, there is not any action to change the condition, so this loop will be executed infinitely. So we have to be sure that this is not allowed. So let's see an example in order to see how it works, this while statement, in which, well, we are printing some numbers while some condition is satisfied. In this case, the condition is that the number I is lower than 50. So at some point, we need to ensure that this condition will be false. And take into account that this condition will be false at some point, since here we are modifying the value of I. In this case, we are increasing this value, and at some point the value of I will be greater than 50. So for sure this loop will end at some point eventually. Well, here you have the main program memory, and then here, let's say, the output terminal, in order to see how this works. First of all, this instruction will create a variable I with value 1, and then let's go here in which this condition is checked. In this case, condition is true, so let's go to the block inside the while statement. This instruction increases the value of I by multiplying the current value, that was 1, by 2. In this case, we change here the current value of I. And then we print the value of I in the terminal, and we will show this value too. Then the code goes again to this point in order to compare the condition of the while. The condition is still true, so let's go again inside. We change the value of I, in this case 2 multiplied by 2, 4, and then we print the value of I, in this case 4. So in the terminal at this moment we'll see a 4. Then the code goes again to this point to compare if the value of I is still lower than 50. This is true. Go again inside, change the value, in this case 8, and print the 8. And this process is repeated. Then we check, is true, 16, print, compare, is true, 32, print, compare, is true, change, and print. And go again to the comparison. In this case, take into account that the value of the variable is not lower than 50. So this represents the end of the loop. So at this point, when the condition is not true anymore, the code goes here. This is out of the block of the while statement. So this instruction will print an end in the terminal. So this is an example of how the while statement works, and it's important for you to understand this process, since in order to get practice with programming and of course reading code, it's important to understand this type of instructions. And for sure, in the case of the while, you need to ensure that the loop will end at some point. So here you have a summary of the structure of the while. Here we have some initialization in which we give an initial value to the condition, in this case the variable decimal. Here is the condition that is checked every time, that is also called as word. In this case, that decimal is not equal to 0. And here is the loop body, that is the block of instructions that are inside the while statement. So the while statement is used for defining instructions that we want to repeat several times until some condition becomes false. And this type of iteration instructions are very used when programming. Thanks for watching.